Welcome back to the weekend preview. Time to focus on Arsenal now, ahead of their trip to Southampton. Mikel Arteta's side were favourites for the top four a few weeks ago, but back-to-back defeats have come at a terrible time for the Gunners. Arteta's Arsenal go to a Southampton side who need a response themselves after getting thrashed 6-0 at home by Chelsea last week. Let's hear from their manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl, before the Arsenal boss, Mikel Arteta.
They will have the same situation like we have if you want. They had also lost twice now and trying to find answers. I mean, you see how tough it is also for them. They have a different target. They have to come in, or they want to come in the Champions League and have some injury problems now. What they feel, I think, and still a team that is also on the way up. I think they did a good job this season so far. Young team, and like always with young teams, you see that there are some ups and downs, and for us it's important to cause them some issues, because if you don't, then it's easy for them to win games.
I think you're going to see two teams that are hurting, because we are hurting. We lost the last two games, and we want to perform and win. And I'm sure after the home defeat that they had, they want to do the same. Whoever manages to win more games and play better, and it's going to be some twists still for sure. And the pressure, the perception is going to keep changing from now to the end of the season. We have to be being us and do what we have to.
Well, he's got a smile on his face. He thinks there's still going to be more twists and turns until we find out exactly who's going to finish in that top four. But after what we said just before the break then, guys, what chance do you give Arsenal of catching Spurs? Because they're only 3 points behind and they have a game in hand. It is against Chelsea, so it's not an easy game. But what chance do you give them?
They've got a chance, but I just feel Tottenham are the ones that are stronger for that top four spot. I've enjoyed watching Arsenal this season. The process that they've been in, I think he's come out with glowing reports in terms of within the squad and how he's improved youngsters. I think experienced players could have done more this year. I think he's dealt with everything superb, Arteta, but I just feel they've going to fall short, but I still feel it's a successful season, finishing outside the top four. Yeah,
because at the start of the season, Farah, I don't think anyone had Arsenal anywhere near finishing in one of those Champions League places. So if they were to, for example, finish fifth and play Europa League football next season, is that still a very successful season for Arsenal?
Yeah, I would say so. I think, Arteta, he's got a young squad, hasn't he? He's come in and he's had to get rid of, some of the players that he didn't feel fitted, his style or the group of players. So he's had a lot to deal with since coming in. And he's got a lot of young players, a lot of pressure on his young players to deliver consistently. And when you're a young player coming through, you tend to have blips in your performances, and there's not much consistency. I feel for them to improve next season, I feel like they need to add some experience. I feel like, Partey's been fantastic for them, and now his injury, it's no coincidence, it's coincided with the two, results they've had of late in terms of defeats. But I think they've done a fantastic job. Look, I wrote him off at the beginning of the season. I thought, he had a big job on his hands, and I think he's done a fantastic job.
They can see that potentially as a success, but how much of a missed opportunity will they see it as well, Jason? Because considering they've not played any European football this season, it was their best opportunity to focus on finishing the top four.
That's the point I was going to make. I mean, I totally agree with the guys, but the only problem is there must be something in the heads of everyone at Arsenal. This was in our hands, and it's not in their hands at the moment. It might be back in their hands in a couple of weeks, but this was in your hands. You had that chance. It was there to be taken. Unique opportunity, as you say, because they're not playing European football. Everything seemed to come together for them, didn't it? The team was playing well. The players were obviously progressing. The coach is doing really well. He'd worked on the squad and moved some players out. It was all coming together. So you get it in your hands, and then you let it go. Now, the only thing that worries me about that is when they didn't have the pressure, they obviously were doing brilliantly. The moment the pressure's on them, they folded. Now, obviously, it could just be a blip, and they could go again, but that's what would worry me about.
I think you're spot on there, and I think that what that comes down to is the inexperience of the squad. That's it.
They do have the youngest starting 11 in the league.
That's actually a decent excuse.
And I genuinely feel that is it. I think there's experienced players there. Like I think Lacazette, for instance, first and foremost, you look at a striker that's not really driven on goals, driven on helping the youngsters. You look at Smith Rowe and Saka, their interviews, they love playing with him. Love being around him. What the confidence that he gives them as well. But that inexperience proved exactly there when the pressure was on. not that they went hiding, it's just they're new to it and it's just a different level. But then they would have gained that as well for them. And that's why I've enjoyed watching them this year, because they've grown. Like Ben White, for instance, has gone in there it's not his fault that he's gone there for a large sum, but there was people sort of doubting him and writing him off. Ramsdale in goal, he's another one. They've all sort of come through tough periods. But, the last two performances where they just dip off their standards, you get caught out in this division.
Yeah, these are their last two matches, which they lost in the space of a week, against Crystal Palace and then against Brighton on Saturday last weekend as well. 2 defeats in a row, meaning that they're now 3 points behind Tottenham in the table. And you talk about the inexperience in the squad, but how much of them falling away a bit as well, Farah, is down to the inexperience potentially of the manager? Yeah,
I think collectively, look, he's learning on the job. At Arsenal, the young players are learning at the job, and just heard him say in the interview there about the pressures around it. And as you said before, that they didn't have these pressures. He was coming in and he had time, and the club have given him time to put his philosophy across and for the players to buy into it and find his way. But yeah, I do think, look, they're both manager and players are inexperienced. Maybe he needs a little bit more experience around him in terms of his coaching staff, and certainly, in the summer, I'm sure he'll bring some experience in to help these younger players, and they'll look for next season as another opportunity to grow as a team.
What is good is if you go to the Emirates, the atmosphere is completely different now. I mean, the fans are behind the team. Okay, if they don't finish in top 4, it'll be a disappointment, but if they finish 5th, it is a success over the course of the season. So I think he has, to be fair to him, he's changed that dynamic. I think people are much more behind the team now. I think you always look at a manager and think, what is your plan? What's the route ahead with you? Some managers, you don't see it. But with him, he's got a very clear idea of where they're going, what the squad's going to look like, what the development of the team is going to be. We're obviously working close with Edu. So I would give him all the time in the world to sort this out, really, at the moment, because I think he is going in the right direction, and they're probably going faster than they expect them to. But, it still is a missed opportunity if they don't get a top 4.
Yeah, and in fairness to him, he's had a fair few fires to put out Arsenal as well. Releasing Aubameyang and allowing him to leave the club was a massive thing.
Huge call. I mean, you're getting rid of someone that's huge on the wages to get out, having to make changes, bringing in youngsters, and just watch him there on the training pitch. The youngsters will love that. In terms of he's on the detail that he'll be on there, giving them. You get some managers that are head coaches from the sidelines, dip in, dip out. He's the one that's on there, moving them, telling them where to be.
Did you prefer that as a player?
The youngsters nowadays, they can't get enough of it. They thrive off stats. They thrive off everything to do with numbers, where to be on the training pitch. They kind of like being told, what to do, where to be, but then given the license to go, right, but when it's your time to shine, you go and you dazzle. It's given them the responsibility as well. So in his first year in terms of management, he's been outstanding for me this season, Arteta.
And an opportunity now to face a side who conceded 6 last weekend in Southampton. How much do Arsenal need this win just to get back on track?
Yeah, they needed to get back on track. I think, in reverse fixture, when he was at home against them, they really struggled in that first 20 minutes against Southampton, and Southampton pinned them in. And then he got a counter and they was able to play around him, and he obviously won that game 3-0. So, yeah, I think if they can get over that period, because Southampton are a difficult team to play against. I think Arsenal really did struggle early in the season when they played against them. So it's not going to be an easy game for Arsenal, and I think they know that going to Southampton. But look, Southampton aren't in any great form, and coming off of the back of a 6-0 defeat, there'll be, as he mentioned, the confidence in both teams. Both teams will be hurting, so it'll be an interesting game. But I don't think it'll be easy for Arsenal. I think Southampton are a fantastic team and a unique style.
Will you expect a reaction from Southampton, Jason, after losing 6-0? These are the goals they conceded. And I tell you what, Fraser Forster made a ton of saves as well. It could have been more than 6. Why does this happen to Southampton? It tends to happen at least once every season. We've seen some very heavy defeats. Is there something deeper to this, or is it just weird?
I think it's just weird.
Yeah.
It's definitely just weird, isn't it?
They've conceded 15 goals, I think, in their last 5 Premier League games, and I've covered them this season, and getting a 0-0 away at the Etihad against Man City, defensively outstanding. So this is really unlike them. I love the way that they play in terms of that box midfield. Their wingers come in and their philosophy, but they're just conceding far too many goals at the moment in this Premier League. and it's the wrong time to do it as well at this back end of the season.
Well, in the club's history, 3 of their 5 heaviest defeats have come in the last 3 years, so all of those under Ralph Hasenhüttl. Is there something about the manager? Is there something different he can do to stop this from happening? Because ultimately, Southampton are safe, but it's embarrassing for the fans, isn't it? They don't want to face that.
It is, and it's not as if it's every time you watch Southampton, it's like a Leeds, for instance, where it's just a basketball style. I mean, I've seen them again, you know, like I said, they've gone to Man City and defensively been outstanding. So when they're on it, you know, they're astute, they're very clever, but then when they're not, they're leaking in goals, which is, you sound like them, but then you just see stats there and you go, well, it's happening far too often, really. So, yeah, they're just inconsistent. But yeah, there's got to be something there that, whether it's a willingness to want to defend, like I said there, when the times are hard and you've got to do the hard yards, a 10-yard run feels like it's a 50-yard run, and if you're not willing to do that, then you're going to be shipping in goals.
Yeah, and football's for the fans, Jason, and Southampton strike me as a team who you never really fear for them to go down, but you want to see them at least challenge for something, and they always seem to get to a point where they feel safe, and then what happens after that, they tend to drop off a bit. We've seen with a team like Crystal Palace this year, they're now on a cup run, and it's so exciting for the fans.
The only thing I'd say, and I really rate Ralph Hasenhüttl as a manager, the only thing I'd say is, you know, every year they do lose big players. You know, obviously Danny Ings went this year, they lost Vestergaard as well, and they've never really been in trouble, you know. So I understand what you're saying, but if you go through the squad and look at that team, if you take James Ward-Prowse out, I'm not sure there's an awful lot of players there that anyone else really, really, really wants. You know, I think to be fair to him, you know, I think he's squeezing every last ounce out of them, really, in terms of the results they've achieved. But then I still can't understand why you lose 6-0. Notwithstanding that, because saying he's a good coach and he gets the players working hard and he's getting the maximum effort out of them, then how can it go so badly wrong on occasions? I don't understand how it can just go quite so badly wrong. You can get beat, obviously, but to get beat so badly, well, they just seem to almost like capitulate to a degree. I mean, as you say, 6-0, it could have been another 9, couldn't it? Could have been double figures last week.
Yeah,
they really struggle. I went Southampton Newcastle a few weeks back, but they struggle. They dominate periods of the game. They play in periods and they dominate. It's when momentum switches to the opposition. In that period of time, they look so vulnerable. And that's when I feel like I said, the Arsenal game, they look so vulnerable in that period.
So is that a coaching thing then?
I don't know. Or is it a player mentality? I don't know. It's difficult when you lose momentum in a game to then get it back, and you've got to ride that spell when you haven't got the ball. And
it sounds to me like you guys are saying they're on the beach already.
Well, they literally live on the beach. Sort of. Right, shall we move on? Let's talk about another one of the matches. Manchester United take on Norwich. Man United looking to bounce back after that horrible defeat against Everton last week. Let's hear from Ralph Rangnick and Dean Smith.